share content. Bear with me. Okie dokie. So yes, thanks to Amy for the introduction there. I'm Laurie Clough. I'm from the School of Civil Engineering and Surveying. I'm the senior tutor there, and today what I'm going to be kind of talking about is meeting the challenges of remote personal tutoring. So before I kind of start and we get into it, what I will say is I'm kind of hoping there's going to be quite a few discussion points throughout this. I think Amy's going to be monitoring the chat, and I've got several points where ask you to specifically kind of use the chat to discuss some topics. So do use that. I think personal tutoring is a very kind of emotive topic, really, what I've found, and you know, across the whole university, people are going to be having been doing things in certain ways for years, and have their own ideas on how to do things remotely. I don't think anyone probably can call themselves an expert at remote personal tutoring, because we are all just about to start doing this as tutors. So it's going to be a kind of a steep learning curve for us all, myself included. So when I put this together, what I wanted to kind of focus on was more the kind of human aspect of this rather than kind of technology. I'll obviously refer to technology throughout, but you know, when you're looking at the kind of sessions, the other sessions being run within the festival, there's a lot more specific technology related sessions which could possibly help you and give you ideas of what you can then use for your personal tutoring. However, I'm not going to be spending the next hour running through a certain software and say that you must use this. It's not how it's going to run. It's more looking at the kind of the personal, the human aspect of it, and how we can make the experience kind of enjoyable and good for our students. Okay, so let's begin. So yeah, this is just a review of the contents of what I'm going to go through today. So this is a new situation for us all. So, you know, lots of learning for everyone to do. I'm going to mention a bit about the new personal tutoring framework, which if you saw the staff emails earlier, you'll see that that's now been published. I've got some links for you to share with you on that respect. Talk about group tutorials, the importance of online student community, the actual one-to-one communication with your tutees. I mentioned a bit about technology, of course. This is Blending Learning Festival after all. Also reference to a new kind of well-being philosophy, this learning well philosophy, which well-being is developing, and a few things about how, you know, think about how to track engagement and track development as well. So before I kind of dive into that, what I want us to do is a bit of a kind of little bit of imagination, and if you want to close your eyes and imagine the following situation, then please do. It might help you imagine it. The good thing for you is that your cameras are probably turned off, so I won't know if you've got your eyes closed or not. But I'm just going to kind of want to present you with a situation which, you know, and see how you feel in this situation. See if you can relate anything to it. Okay, so you decide to attend a conference in another country or a faraway part of the UK. Well, at the conference, you're asked to stay in your own room, apart from a few hours out every week. And unfortunately, all the good parts of the conference, all the social activities are all cancelled. So there's no drinking, partying, anything. You don't really know your way around, whether it's the conference buildings or the city that you've gone to. You can find information about the conference you're attending online, but you haven't actually had any face-to-face introduction from anybody. So to find some help, you think, well, I'll send an email to my personal conference guide to ask for help, but 2 weeks later, get a short and unhelpful reply. And by the way, this conference isn't going to last a few days, it's going to last the next 9 months of your life. So imagine that situation if you can. How you can open your eyes if you did close your eyes. If you didn't close your eyes, then don't worry. How do you actually feel? This is kind of a thing which I, want us to kind of get back down to thinking about how our students are feeling coming here, and all those situations. Really, some of them are going to be unavoidable, but some of them we do want to try to avoid. So, is that going to be making you nervous, anxious, lonely, annoyed, uncertain, very obvious, uncertain what to do and where to go? You might be asking yourself, should I have come at all? Or you might be, like, I think someone just posted up about playing on an Xbox. You might be that person who's like, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy this, enjoy my isolation and just sit back and relax. But it's this question, should I have come at all? And you can imagine, this is the point I was trying to do with this imagination, is try to think that these students are coming here, possibly parts of that situation are going to be true and there's not much we can do about it. There's other parts which we can do something about. And we want to try to avoid the case when these students are going to be asking themselves, should I have come at all? So the start is really key. I want the students to come here and feel welcome as part of the university, not just coming here to do a course, they're part of something. So we want to establish that early link with the students coming. And also make contact with your tutees, but also respond to your tutees. Now, I'm hoping people that have come to this session, possibly all tutors who take an active kind of role in tutoring and that kind of stuff, should hopefully come naturally to you. But it's even more imperative now in this situation where we have these potential students in isolation and actually disconnected physically. How are we going to connect with them if we can't connect physically? We're going to have to be contacting them actively and really being on it, really responding to them when they do contact us. And another one, ensure that all the information that you have, whether course related, university related, etc., is all really easily accessible for all students. So, as I said, this is a new situation for us all. There are some similarity to some kind of distance learning tutoring we've already been doing at the university, and some of us would have been possibly involved in this already, or at least know people in your departments who have been involved in distance learning and tutoring people from that. So there are some lessons to be learned from there, but also this is a different situation in that the students, what we're hoping is that they're going to be coming to Portsmouth to actually engage physically as much as they can with our university and with the course. But that means that very likely not to have their own support mechanisms when they come here, their own families and friends. If you imagine, I've been sitting in my house for the past 4 months, surrounded by my lovely family supporting me in things that I do. But if I then had to go to that conference for 9 months, okay, I can call them and do whatever, but they're not there as my direct support mechanism. So we've got to be aware that this is going to be slightly different. So students, they're in a new place, potentially on their own. And also there are different students in lots of different situations. We can't assume every student is coming here and they've got a small bunch of friends and they're happy in that little bunch of friends. We might have some students who are living in a kind of home situation, maybe with childcare or work or things like this. So we've got to have possibly even more of a range of students coming here or remotely coming here, and we need to be able to kind of adapt to all those different situations. We also need to realize that some students may not have the technological resources to connect. That was particularly clear to me towards the end of last year when we were doing some more of the learning part of it rather than tutoring part, is that some students just didn't have the technology, and hopefully that will be kind of highlighted and resolved quickly at the start to make sure that everyone is able to access things more remotely if they really need to. And I've mentioned about caring and work responsibilities too. So as I said near the start, there is the new personal tutoring framework, which has been developed over the past several months. I've personally been involved in the development with Harry and several other associate heads and senior tutors and so on. So it's just been released. I would recommend you to go and start having a look at that. Look at some of the web pages I'm going to share with you soon to start to absorb the kind of the philosophy of it, and start to try to. There's ideas and things that you can start implementing into your practice as well. So just a few extracts from it, some of the basic kind of headline points. I'm not going to spend all the time going through every detail of it. So the main point is University of Portsmouth is committed to providing every student with effective and appropriate support and development throughout their entire student journey. Personal tutoring forms a central activity in our students' academic, personal and professional development, improves engagement, increases retention, and encourages students to become partners in their learning, progression and achievement. They're the key kind of areas from that are the academic, the pastoral and the professional development, that as personal tutors we need to kind of be thinking about how we're going to be doing those and delivering those in an effective way, especially online. So what does a personal tutor do? If everyone here has been a personal tutor over the past however many years, or if you're brand new to this, this may be a new news to you, but generally, even in a non-remote situation, these are the kind of things personal tutoring does. So academic tutoring, academic expertise, or if not specific subject expertise, at least being able to know how to direct students to other relevant members of staff, discussing academic progress, discussing personal development, signposting key students there. So at the beginning, at this kind of point, just start to, I'm not going to ask this as a discussion point because it's too vague a question really, but all of these kind of things, start to kind of mull over, how can we do all of these remotely? Now, as I get into the more detail of the presentation, there's going to be some things which I suggest, well, don't do this remotely. You need to do this face to face. If you can. There's going to be some probably departments which may be doing things differently. I totally understand and appreciate that. So we also, it's kind of a way that we need to kind of think what we can be doing face to face, but also be having that kind of remote backup where we need it, because situation with COVID-19 is obviously changing all the time as well, and we could well be in another situation where we're in a lockdown in several months, and this is then even more imperative to get right. If we don't want to be in the case where students, we're not seeing them at all because we're told we can't, and they're on their own, not sure what to do, where to go, etc. Here's a link, by the way, to the part of the Personal Tutoring website. I won't click on that just yet. I'll just stay on the presentation for a bit, but I will show some parts of it later. This is the part of it which is looking at example curriculum throughout a student's kind of the years of study, suggestions and things of what to do with both in a one-to-one environment and also in the kind of group tutorial environments as well, with information on potential remote activities that you can be doing with them. Okay, so I'll try and get down to the more detail of stuff now. And the first thing I want to talk about is group tutorials. It's of the personal tutoring framework. It's a key part of general, the professional development of our students over time. Anyway, so we need to think about how we're going to be approaching it and doing it. So first thing to say is try to use a consistent approach within your department and school. If you've got tutors doing lots of different things in different ways, it's going to be quite a mess. So make sure that you're having conversations with other tutors within your school. You will know what you're doing, where the information is, and how the students are engaging with that information. Now, this is where things may start to kind of change when I say, okay, I probably recommend you as much as you can to undertake these kind of group tutorials face to face where possible. Now, I know that may cause all sorts of response across the whole university. Some departments may have said, actually, no, this is a thing which we can deliver remotely and we're going to choose to. But, and especially if you've just all filled in your timetable request forms, it's maybe a bit late now to kind of go back and think about changing that. But if you are have chosen to do this remotely, it would be it's a positive thing to do. Essentially, it's a good opportunity to obviously for the students to meet other students, and there's something there about key groups, which is again a well-being initiative that want to be trying to get students coming here into small key groups, which may form part of their kind of personal tutoring group tutorial kind of network. It's a good opportunity for them to see you as their personal tutor. If they have never had any physical sight of you, then there is an immediate disconnect between yourself as the tutor. And also, it's a good idea to put a face on certain student services. So I know in some of our tutorials we ran or have been running, we get, and I'm sure probably quite a few of you do, get certain student support services, whether academic, pastoral, or whatever, across the whole university, come in and give a talk. And if the students can see those people, then they're more likely to use them. If they can see someone and they've had a chat with someone from wellbeing in a group tutorial just about the general wellbeing services, then they're probably more likely, if something starts to kind of go wrong in their own kind of personal lives, to think, I remember that person. I might try to contact them, contact wellbeing, and use the services, which is what we want to be encouraging. But of course, there is the remote aspect of it. So I believe that actually, when you think about the kind of pedagogic model that we're going to be using for our taught modules, why not use the same kind of model for our group tutorials? The kind of delivery where we've got those kind of we've got the introductory kind of videos and with small tags. We've got group collaboration, which is great because that's a big part of those group tutorials is to get the students engaging together, and then further reading and things where they can go on and look more into student services and on what you're kind of been showing them in the group tutorial. So actually think about it, it's a perfect model to be using, and there's no reason, I personally think, why we shouldn't be using that. Obviously some people may have some different thoughts, and that's great. We'll maybe discuss those thoughts in a bit. So focus on a remote delivery. There's plenty of platforms, and as I said, this isn't really a technology kind of session, but obviously we can't I can't talk about remote tutoring without some form of technology discussion. So synchronous sessions, WebEx, or whatever is the kind of preferred choice within your department. As I said, make sure that there's a consistent approach to this. I think if students one week turn up and you're in WebEx, and another week turn up and you're on Google Meet, and the other week it's something else, they are probably going to be confused and not sure where to go. So make sure there is a consistent approach across your department. and yeah, use these group tasks to get students talking to each other, to share contact details and start to create their own communities. It might be done through forums on Moodle, maybe done separately from that. So I'll talk a bit more about student communities coming up, but yeah, it's a really key part of these group tutorials is to get the students actually talking to each other. And you know, if I think back to not only the kind of group tutorials that I've run, but when I was a student going to these things, then actually the friends that I made at the end of the throughout the course are the people that I were in my personal tutoring group, and you know they'll hopefully be friends for life. And we want having it, not having that physical part is going to make this really difficult. So we've got to work hard to make sure there is ways that we can do this remotely in these kind of group activities. Yeah, to encourage engagement and discussion between them. And you may find that you can get them involved in group tasks, which then they can produce something together collaboratively, and then put things on Google Drives, Microsoft Teams, do peer reviews to get them talking and engaging with each other. So I guess this is probably a good point to have the first discussion or a discussion point, which is how would you deliver group tutorials, and you know, have you got any thoughts about how you provide remote versions? So I'll stop for about 5 minutes and I'll just kind of look at the chat, and yeah, if people have got any questions or suggestions on this, then we can go through and have a look at that. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a small amount of time. Okay. So this is the first time I would have looked at the questions properly. Oh, thanks, Harriet, for sharing that that link. Okay, so yeah, I've had some comments already from Sarah saying, yeah, that you know actually an hour of this 6 today you're going to be using for face-to-face tutorials. That's good to see. Okay, so yeah, MSc students. Yeah, I guess when you have a kind of cohort which may be more involved with, well, MSc students, they may be doing it part-time, they may be doing work at the same time, they may be more likely to be having kind of childcare and things like that. It is harder to get kind of responses from them. I guess you just have to use all the kind of maybe learning in some of the other blended learning sessions about trying to engage them not only with you but with each other, and really get them to see the benefit of these group tutorials in terms of employability and things like that. I will in a few slides time kind of talk about things to do with kind of engagement, I guess, student communities and stuff, so on. Yeah, there's someone mentioning about Nearpod as well. So if you haven't had a bit of a introduction to Nearpod, I'd recommend. As I think there may be some other sessions. It is good. You're right about the student anonymity. Yeah, you know, they are unlikely to kind of want to present themselves in front of a group of people they never met and never been in the same room as, so that using that Nearpod and with link to kind of WebEx and things is a great idea for these kind of group tutorials. So it's a long, so I'll just read this from Paul, if you don't mind me reading. So the initial task for the teacher is to build student confidence and reconfirm for them why they are there. Paul does this with first with some biographical questions and tasks, and they can share things they understand well. Then they move to common topical questions they have views about. So yeah, careful, it's good. Yeah, not too sensitive or controversial, but then relate them to your assessments. And then followed by more detailed reading and guided questions with a view to sharing these with others. Feedback is provided at this stage on the answers and some further extension tasks set related directly to summative assessment. So that sounds very well. Actually, Paul, yeah, I mean, you know, how does that go? It sounds like a really well thought through kind of approach. It'd be good to know, has that, you know, how has that worked in the past with your students, and how have they kind of engaged with that? So someone's mentioned about one-to-one tutorials. I will come on to one-to-one. At the moment we're just talking about group tutorials, so yeah, I'll mention about that kind of one-to-one communication. So someone's been using Teams as well. Yeah, it does create these challenges in terms of lack of engagement. What I'm hoping is that all of this, yeah, as I said, this is, you know, kind of the kind of look at the personal human approach, and I'm hoping that if the people here have been kind of attending a lot of the other sessions, then they'll see, you know, something which they can specifically use to engage students within in these group tutorials, and think, yeah, that's a great thing. I'll use that. Whether it is the use of Nearpod or other things like Vvox, or even the use of the Moodle site and things such as the such as kind of quizzes and things like that. So yeah, do use those as much as you can. Okay. So can we use induction to stimulate students to engage with personal tutees from the outset rather than use it as an emergency service? It's okay, yeah, I mean, we, you know, do that, please. Yeah, I mean, that's, I think that's definitely kind of the driver that we try to approach in our school. Okay, yeah, the induction information is good to be there for that kind of, well, emergency, I don't know, emergency service is the right word, but that kind of place to go where where students can find things out. But definitely in that first week, those the kind of key meetings with your personal tutor and getting them to see you, engage with you, and then with the other people in their tutor group is great. It is most important the new take 4 and 7. Yeah, yes, of course. Yeah, people coming new to this. Okay. I'm sorry if I don't get around to answering questions, and please, by all means, whilst I'm kind of going on and continuing on the presentation, if you see a question come up in the chat which you think, okay, I've got some valid input, I can answer that from someone else. Please don't wait for me to read it out and talk about it. Please do talk to each other about it as well. Okay, I'll get back to the next few things. Okay. That's group tutorials. So what I want to kind of talk about next is student community, which yeah, all these things are going to be kind of inextricably linked. Having a student community is almost a part of a vital part of the group tutorials as well. So that lack of that actual community that students aren't going to have, that going out with friends, going to the pub, etc., means that this online community is going to be vital for students to get through. They're not going to be able to develop their support and friendship networks like they usually would. And going back to that kind of, someone rightly said, new students coming here, levels 4 and 7, that initial contact is going to be really important. So having those initial group meetings can be really important to make students feel part of the university and that they're in a kind of grounded situation. And as we kind of mentioned, the use of forums, group chats, etc., as part of tutorials and Moodle sites. However, another thing before I kind of get that however on, it's important that students are able to have this community also without, kind of fear that there's a lecturer kind of coming in, looking at them and kind of assessing them all the time and worrying about what they're going to say. So this notion of a lecturer-free spaces is an important one for students to be able to communicate. Now, if we encourage lecturer-free spaces, we kind of saying, well, we don't, I don't think it's easy to say you have to use this particular social media network, or use this one, or use this one. It's good for us to kind of suggest things and show things through our Moodle sites and whatever, but really, the students are going to choose their own methods to kind of talk to each other and have that community with each other. Now, this is the however. If they have those kind of can communicate with each other, we really need to make sure that there is, well, as much as we can, make sure that there is no abuse in those kind of lecturer-free spaces. So essentially, you've seen, I'm not a part of Twitter or those kind of things, and I don't get too involved with my personal social media, but it is really easy for people to be abusive and hide behind their phones and computers, especially when it comes to these kind of group chats and things where the students are just kind of sharing ideas and information, which is great, but it can lead to abuse being had. And even in the last several months, I've come across cases of that within our school, which unfortunately we've had to be dealing with. So we can't monitor those things, but as a kind of university, and as a school, we need to kind of be ensuring and reiterating to students that any kind of thing like that, any abuse, any prejudice, which is in any way, in any shape or form, but especially now when we've got these remote kind of communities that may start forming, that we do not tolerate it. And also that if we get students, our personal tutees, who come to us saying, look, this has happened within this group chat or whatever, that we encourage them to discuss it with yourselves, or discuss it with relevant members of your staff, and also to report it formally. It's a really tricky one, but we can do what we can do in terms of making sure as a university, students understand what is appropriate and what is tolerable. We can look at student charter within group tutorials and things, and get them to understand that they're not just here to kind of be selfish and take things, but they've also got to be part of something, and part of that is respecting other people. So this is speak up and step up. Yes, you're quite right. The speak up and step up is also a good thing for students to be using if let's hope this thing doesn't happen, but we need to also be making sure that we're ready to support them if these things do happen. So another discussion point, apologies for the cheesy photo, is how can we encourage students to engage with each other? So we've talked a bit about what we want, what we might be doing in terms of group tutorials and delivery like that. But now take yourself out of that equation. How can we get students to engage with each other? It may involve a little bit of initial kind of direction from yourself or the school or whatever, but then how can we kind of set them and leave them to it? So I'll kind of close my screen and just have a little look at the chat. If you've got ideas regarding this, then please do use the chat to kind of voice those ideas as well, please. Okay. Yep, so someone just reiterating about the lecturer free space being really important. And Amy has referred how some universities have used a buddy system or groups across years. That I am aware that that does happen with in the School of Civil Engineering. We have done that in some of our courses, some of the smaller courses anyway, which people across the years have kind of been grouped. I kind of laugh because I just realised that we've had to stop this year because of making sure that we've got small enough groups, but we've kind of grouped, years across different cohorts together so that older students are able to kind of engage with younger students, get them engaged. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen due to numbers and people's size of people, the numbers of people in rooms and things. But it can still happen. Why not? It can still happen in a kind of online way as well. So be good to kind of make sure you can think about using those kind of things. Someone's EdSoc FTUG Education has reintroduced this for our new students from support with L5 from Gina. I'm afraid, Gina, I'm not sure what you're referring to there. If you'd like to give more details, I'm happily go through what that's about. You can demute yourself and talk a bit more detail about that, or just write a bit more in the chat. Okay, it's about. Okay, it's about the buddy system then. So I was actually in the I went to a session on building online student communities earlier, which was it was run by Stuart Sims, which is a great session. Really, it was talking a lot about making sure that there was some kind of presence, online presence from yourself as a lecturer, but then kind of being able to let the students kind of as a way to kind of go off and do it themselves and create a community. The different things, lots of different kind of tools we mentioned. Discord is another tool, which I know that a lot of the younger generation use a lot. So there's plenty of things out there that we can be encouraging the students to engage with. Okay. Well, if there's any more specific discussions on that kind of engaging with each other as we go along, then I'll kind of come back to that. I can't see anything else which has popped up in the chat, but please do use that. Even if you've got ideas or you completely disagree with what I'm saying, it's good to know that there is a bit of there will be an active discussion and agreement or disagreement. So Harriet, we're looking at building a sense of belonging in the L&T work stream, so more to follow centrally too. Harriet, did you want to say anything on that before I can continue?
Thanks, Laurie. It's just to say that the L&T work stream is doing quite a lot in different areas. So just to let people know that although we're just towards the beginning of some of the work, more will follow in terms of guidance and support and training. And we're looking to develop more support and training for personal tutors. So that will also follow too. I just thought it would be helpful that people knew that this wasn't the only thing would be provided for them. Okay.
Thank you very much for that, Harriet. If there's Harriet, if there's anything else along the way which you want to chip in on, please do. Don't wait for me to see. Okay, I'll go back on with the presentation. Okay. So I might have to speed through some things. Okay, moving on to what I think is possibly the most important part of this is that one-to-one communication with your personal tutee. So what is important here is making sure there's regular and valuable communication, but also that there's a degree of flexibility here. You know, as I said, there's going to be lots of students in different situations. You may need to be finding a time which suits you both, not just the student. You know, ourselves as lecturers, if things happen and childcare and stuff has to be kind of takes a part of your life, then we also need to make sure we're working around that. That initial continued contact for new students coming to the university is very important. I said here, I was laughing when I see this point, Rich, about empathy, and we can't teach empathy. We can't do that. You know, some people have it, some people don't. Hopefully, we will have it a bit, but if you feel that you're the person who may not naturally empathetic, I know that certain situations I am not, then what we can do as personal tutors is really just listen to our tutees. I think that's a key part. If we appear that to them, then they're not going to want to believe in us as their tutors. They're not going to kind of feel connected. But do make sure, if you have a tutee come to you to discuss something which you feel you're well out of your depth, that you do, you can find support as well as a tutor. So your senior tutor in your school, associate head, head of school, faculty engagement officer, or maybe even the associate dean if it's something maybe a bit more serious, they're all there to support you in this respect as well. So do feel if you need to refer things and get some advice on certain stuff, do speak to those kind of people. So again, this is something which I believe, and I think a lot of people within the university are driving, that we still want to keep the face-to-face interaction with our tutees and that one-to-one context. It's really important that they do see you. Now, of course, that may not be strictly possible in every certain circumstance. It may be your personal circumstance, their personal circumstance, maybe things happen again. So we do need to think around it if there's other ways that we can have these kind of conversations. So video, I would definitely say do video calls over phone calls. Phone calls do have their place, and I used them a bit towards the end of last year, but I did come across some issues, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people here would have come across some issues in terms of the response that they had. First of all, did you get a response? You could have had absolutely called a student 10 times and just not had any pickup. So can phone calls to students, can they work? So this is some of the stuff which I found from the early parts of lockdown when I was on my tutees. Some of them were really happy to take that call and talk for ages about the situation. Actually, most of them were in a fairly good place, but quite a lot of them weren't that interested and just gave those kind of monosyllabic answers. And just, you could tell they just were like, why are you bothering calling me? What is this about? And to be honest, those are the students who's more likely not going to be having those difficulties. So this is again a point which I believe, and a lot of people believe, is the importance of that face-to-face interaction. Is we can then be telling if there are these students who are naturally going to be kind of shy and not wanting to talk to you, or just giving those one-word answers. It's easier to spot if they are experiencing difficulties, and there's essentially less chance of misunderstanding between yourself and the student as well. So we want to show in that face-to-face approach that we are genuinely interested in their well-being, not just as another student number. So the actual conversation with your students, whether, well, hopefully it is that in that face-to-face environment, but if it's not on a kind of video call kind of thing, is firstly be prepared. You know, if you have, you know, the student's coming and you want to discuss an important thing about the student, maybe some issue, don't, you know, look for the information on it. Don't kind of wait for them to come and spend 5-10 minutes trying to search for their information online. It just shows the student that you are underprepared and also maybe uninterested. So do try to be prepared. An initial "how are you" is so. I know this seems obvious, but you know, maybe more obvious to others than some, that, you know, actually just showing an initial interest in them to find out if they're okay. Now, this is a tricky one, is asking questions which do require more than that monosyllabic answer. It's a tricky one to do. Maybe try to think about something specific to the course, or maybe personal interests of them, which they can then talk about in more detail and get them interested. Don't get distracted or bored. This is just general focus on cool, you know, conversation etiquette with anybody, really. But importantly for the tutees is to then getting on and discussing the academic progression and goals. Let the students speak as well. If you find yourself speaking for half an hour and the students have just sat there and looked shy, then maybe thinking, well, actually, you know, I didn't give them what may be on their mind. And of course, the really important one is to listen to their concerns and issues, and make sure you signpost them in the right direction to the relevant services. The personal tutoring platform is there to help you with all of this, to record notes, to look at information for services and so on. So really try to avoid emails which are kind of for those kind of very kind of the discussions about issues and things. I think emails really have a good place in terms of delivering information and or maybe quick replies to things. But really, it's sensitive discussions with students. You know, I receive emails all the time and on texts from friends or my wife, which I'm just look at and think, are they really angry and mad with me? You can't tell. You could be interpreted as a negative response. So try to avoid that as much as you can, and use video calls, phone calls if you need to try to talk to students. I'm a bit aware that we're probably kind of running a bit low on time, so I will skip through that discussion and leave the kind of some questions towards the end. So a bit about technology is, okay, yeah, we're getting taught all of these different technologies, and great, please try to use all of them as much as you can within the kind of personal tutoring and group tutoring platform. Tutoring platform is there for us to use. It's really useful in terms of picking up all that information and being able to record stuff. The link here to the personal tutoring website. So if you haven't been there, please do go on there. There's plenty of things. If I don't run out of time, I'll try and get on that site in a minute. But yes, we want to be using all this technology to improve regular contact, engagement, and progression. And make sure you do review your approach as a school into using. A little bit about the learning well, that the wellbeing services have developed this learning well approach to challenge students' a response to the challenging situation of that we're in, which is going to be affecting students' mental health and well-being. So there's some ready-made resources there which will hopefully help you to foster student well-being, belonging and learning mindsets, build mutually supportive and inclusive learning communities, and promote opportunities for dialogue, partnership, and co-construction. I'm not going to say any more about it because there's plenty of information on there, and I think actually later on in the week there's someone from Wellbeing who is giving a session on this. So I strongly recommend you to go to that session and find out much more detail about all this stuff. But there's some general links to the information anyway. Last few things is tracking engagement, and I think when I was putting this together, this is going to be a tricky thing to do, because in previous years when we've had this physical this kind of attendance monitoring situation, then we're able to really have a clear kind of clearly see when someone is not turning up at all and maybe not being engaging. It's going to be hard to spot. But we can still do it. We just need to be a bit more savvy about it. We need to think about non-attendance at any of those online events, online sessions. We can be using Moodle from our taught sessions to look at the Moodle logs, reports, participation statistics. You may set tasks. I'm talking more really now about taught modules rather than group tutorials. You may set tasks within those which what the student has to complete the next section, and also making sure we're tracking initial assessments and non-submissions, and there's a general your personal tutoring meetings that you're aware if there's any lack of attendance there as well. So there's lots of it is going to be harder, and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't just give up on it. And we really, in fact, in this situation, we really need to just be more on it. Getting support from your faculty engagement officer is going to help you a lot. And really, probably one of the most important things is that good communication between module coordinators and personal tutors. So if, as a module coordinator, you can see there is a student who isn't turning up, then and not engaging with anything at all, then bring it to the kind of highlight it to their tutor and discuss it so that people are aware of it. So yeah, those first few months will be crucial for finding out about this, finding out about students with zero engagement, and hopefully getting the faculty engagement officers to help and anyone else helping to make sure that we keep them on track. Few minutes, I will go through this last couple slides and then I'll look through all the chat and see what people said. Sorry if I've been ignoring it for now. So more longer term in terms of their student careers is tracking their professional and academic development, setting goals with students, reviewing those goals, using PDP, looking at goals not just for next month but the term, the year, and thinking about employability and discussing what they need to do to achieve that end goal. And then you can review areas that need specific attention. Now I put this and then I realized actually for all of that we do, we're not specifically to this remote situation, but actually one thing I look at that and I think what we probably need to be doing more of is the portfolio and PDP, and making sure that we are tracking students development over time as they come through, and we're getting them ready in terms of employability, that they can have a place where they've collected all of their skills and information, and then they can use it in whatever way to help them get a job. So the e-portfolio, I think, is something which is really good. There's different ways people have done it. I think Google Sites is one thing which has been used by some places. So do recommend looking into that, or a similar tracking system if you've been using it. So yeah, that's the end of the presentation. There's a few links to resources there. I won't go through those, but I'll try and look now, last 5 minutes or so, at some questions, if any have popped up about any of that along the way. I know, sorry, I rushed through that in the last 20 minutes, but thinking about stuff such as the tracking engagement, tracking professional development, also the one-to-one communication, learning well, and things like that. So let me just stop sharing my screen and I'll see about the chat.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Laurie. Really, really insightful presentation there. Are you okay to hang around for a couple of minutes if people have got questions?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, so feel free to write your questions in the chat, or if you want to turn your video on and raise your hand, you can do it that way as well.
So someone's written something about, and I'm going backwards through the questions, apologies. Someone's written something about Slack is another group. I'm afraid I haven't even heard of Slack. So that's Gina. Did you want to say anything more about that?
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, I heard something then.
Sorry, can you hear me okay or not?
Yeah, we got you.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. The audio is a bit tricky. Yeah, it's something that is used in EdSoc on some of the postgraduate courses. And essentially, it's a platform where you can sort of create a group of tutees, and then you can communicate with them using that as a channel rather than emails. We also use it as associate heads, actually. So it just helps to not clog up email boxes quite so much. And what the student feedback that I had this year was that, because I set this up with my tutees, was that they really liked it because it was a bit less formal than emails, and they didn't have to worry about things like spelling, and they could just kind of question each other. So it was really nice, and I just had a bit of support, setting up the Slack in the first instance. I'm sure that's available for people if they're interested in doing that.
That sounds great. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if you found a link or any more information on that. If you could put it on the group chat, that'd be great, and then people would be able to find a bit more about it. Just going back up through some of the questions that someone's asked, can you set up tasks in Moodle where the completion of one task automatically opens the next task? That's maybe more of a question for Amy. Do you know anything more on that? I'm pretty sure that that can be done.
You can put completion on certain activities, so they kind of unlock each other and they move through in a pace. So you can have a look at that when you set the activity up. There's completion settings. If you want a bit of help with that, just email eLearnerPort and they can organise a quick demo and point you in the right direction. But yes, it is possible.
Great, thank you. Some other people talking a lot about the use of Catherine is talking about the use of blogs to track engagement. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I think it may be a part of something that you can embed into a Moodle site, or maybe something which you can do as a Google site or something. But yeah, it will probably be end up being a bit more informal between yourself and the student. But if you can get them engaged in that and you can get them on board, then yeah, that'd be a great idea. And yeah, someone's saying Denise, yeah, learning well. So yeah, apologies, I forgot Denise's name, but do check out her session later in the week. How about using audio film recordings to communicate with a group, face to name? Yeah. Oh, sorry, that was Amy. Thanks. Yeah, that's a great idea, Amy. Yeah, I think I saw that when in the session that I was on earlier about online communities. Yeah, hiding behind something where the students cannot see each other is going to be tricky. So just maybe, yeah, if there is some kind of online a Moodle site or anything where they can post up little videos or blogs or something about themselves, which then they can basically make more personal to other students, so that they start to find out about each other. Obviously, hopefully, keep it fairly appropriate. That's probably the main thing there. Rebecca Galbraith, a challenge as we went into lockdown was moderating the amount of emails, information, etc. the students were receiving. How would you advise balancing information sharing in such an uncertain time? Oh, that's a really tricky one. Does anyone else want to pitch in on that? I probably probably not the expert on that kind of thing. Yeah, if anyone else has got any ideas how to kind of make sure that we're not overloading the students
Well, I
with too
think,
much information.
Laurie, it's probably about using some of these other suggestions that people have made about using these different forms of communication, and perhaps choosing particular forms that are better for some of the different aspects that we're using. So if we use the forums a bit more for some of the less formal communications, and we stick to emails for the more formal communications, then there won't be quite so much email for people to wade through. That's what Jean is suggesting with the use of Slack, which cuts down on the emails, although Information Services doesn't recommend Slack because of difficulties with it. But I do know that they do use it in humanities quite a lot. I think that each course, as you said, should take a consistent approach and think about how they want to communicate with students, and perhaps using forums within Moodle for particular activities would be useful. And as Amy suggested, using some audio feedback and other ways of doing things will also cut down on the number of emails that are happening. But at the beginning of lockdown, it is true that we just all immediately reverted to lots and lots of emails. And I think we are going to try and cut down on that to a greater extent. So I hope that helps.
Thanks very much for that, Harry. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, that a few of us in our department did start using that approach before the end of term to make sure that students actually use those forums to help each other, and then it wasn't just a constant stream which they can keep on top of. We have kind of gone over time. As I said, I'm still happy to sit here and answer things as people can. But if you feel you've had enough, or you want to go and get some lunch or have a rest, then thanks for coming. Thanks for listening in. It's good to see quite a few of us turn up for this. So I'll stick around and answer some more questions that pop up on the chat, but by all means, go if you need to and if you want to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laurie. If anyone wants to join me by just writing clap clap twice in the chat, show our appreciation.
Thanks very much, everybody. I'll just answer. I've seen some questions pop up, so I'll just try and answer some of those. I might answer some using the actual chat. So I'm just going to mute myself now. Just had to start typing and realised it was taking too long. Yes, that message, Christine. It's a really good point about the time. I think I was certainly aware towards the end of last year that a vast portion of my time was being devoted to this. I don't really have an answer for that. And I don't think anyone is going to have an answer for that. I think we'll see when term starts how much time is going to be needed to be devoted to this. And if you feel